Kashipur. We keep moving forward, opening new doors, doing new things because we are curious. And curiosity keeps leading us down new paths. How true it is during these prevailing times when we are forced to focus on self-development and upskilling ourselves. Let's all welcome together our esteemed panel of guests who have graced us with their presence. Our respected faculty and our dear alumni of IIM Kashipur. Our annual HR Conclave Samanvaya for the first time is being conducted in a digital format. After the success of Digital Chapter 1, we are conducting Chapter 2 here to connect us with all the esteemed organizations around the world to increase industry academia collaborations with these organizations. The theme for the digital chapters is best practices during COVID era and beyond. To begin with, we would like to introduce our panelists. Dr. Ankita Singh has been associated with CIGNEX Datamatics for approximately 6 years and is currently the Senior Vice President and Global HR Head of Admin, Travel, IT and HR. Dr. Singh has experience of over 19 years in managing and leading various aspects of human resource. She was recently awarded among the Forbes India's top 100 Great People Manager. Our second panelist, Mr. Atulaya Goswami, is the HR Head India Subcontinent in UPL Limited, formerly known as United Phosphorus Limited. Mr. Goswami is an HR leader with 15 plus years of domestic and international HR experience with world-class companies in FMCG, manufacturing, and chemical space. His expertise is in HR business partnering, project management, mergers and acquisitions, and talent management. Our third panelist is Ms. Sonam Saraf, is currently the Senior HR Manager at Tonic Worldwide. Ms. Saraf has previously worked in HDFC AMC and has 7 years of experience in HR domain. Her key interest areas include talent acquisition and employee engagement. Our fourth panelist is Ms. Sanjana Ramesh, currently working in Tonic Worldwide as HR Manager. Being an alumnus of TIS, she has previously worked in Hansas Equity. Her key interest areas include employee engagement and performance management. Our moderator, Mr. Skand Gupta, is an alumnus of IIM Kashipur and is currently working in Wipro Enterprise Private Limited. He leads HR for new businesses, that is Wipro 3D and Win Automation. Mr. Gupta has 4 years of experience and has previously worked in Murugrappa Group and have been part of corporate HR, business HR functions, and has also partnered HR for sales function. It is a pleasure to host them for the day and get an opportunity to learn from their valuable experience. I would now like to request our moderator, Mr. Skand Gupta, to take the floor, share the topic with us, and initiate the panel discussion. Over to you, Skand.
Thank you, Alisha. Thank you, Alisha, for the quick introduction and giving a quick brief of the panelist profile. So once again, welcome panelists. Welcome to the discussion of Samanvaya from IIM Kashipur. So we had been organizing Samanvaya over a period of years to interact with HR partners in the industries to understand how the HR function is evolving and what can be the implication for the students to quickly take a grasp of what is happening and then quickly relearn, reskill, and be ready for the industry when they actually graduate from the college. So in this line, we have been organizing Samanvaya, and this year we have taken the digital route due to the situations that we all are in. So the theme which we have chosen this year is the best practices in the COVID era and beyond. So this theme has been chosen in light with the environment around us, and one of the discussion has already happened, and this season 2 or the second part is actually having with the topic of the importance and methodologies of upskilling in the recent times. So let's hear from the panelists who have been implementing the upskilling and reskilling in the current during this COVID-19 in their respective organization. So I would like Ms. Ankita to start first and share from her experience that what has been the significance of upskilling in reskilling during these current times.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Alicia, for the wonderful intro, and IIM Kashipur for inviting us over. A very relevant topic, I think, not only for current times, but this will remain as is forever, because relearning or upskilling is not going anywhere away from our radar, from anybody's radar for that matter. A lot of us have been hearing about the new normal, and I would say few people are quoting it right as next normal, because new is very soon old in our dictionary, looking at the current time and scenario. And upskilling or relearning or learning is something which is a continuous process, and that is helping us sailing through this current situation, and will always help the individual as well as the organization to remain where they are, and definitely to go up a ladder. So if I talk about my organization or the experience, like Alicia mentioned initially, I'm associated with CIGNEX for last 6 years, and with the Datamatics group for last 16 years now. And I've seen we still have, around 50% employees who have completed 10 years or more with us. And the most important reason, or I think the reason for them to stick with us, is we have invested well in them. And when I talk about investment, you definitely, cover the topic of engagement, and at the same time, you also talk about their development, which covers upskilling. So scenario is changing, requirements are changing, your client requirements change, your projects change. We have at this point in time, definitely it has to be taken to a different level for that person or organization to become relevant. So I think upskilling is the most important thing as on today, if at all I consider L&D part. And if overall HR perspective, then again, I think after communication and empathy, development would definitely find its place in the top chart. So yes, upskilling is important, and everybody has to invest. Not only the organization, individuals should also take that lead. They should be proactive enough to understand the need of the hour, and they should invest well in the system. Yeah, thanks. You are on mute.
Unmute.
Thank you very much, Ankita. I think that was a very good starting note to begin with. So let us move to Mr. Atulaya. Mr. Atulaya, I'm pronouncing your name right. It is Atulaya or Atulaya?
Absolutely right. So that's an extra A there, but you got it bang on.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So
I would like you to emphasize on the upskilling part as well, and especially from the individual's perspective. I think that is where we should actually be taking the cue from what Ankita has said, and then you can upskilling and reskilling.
Sure. So first and foremost, thanks for having me here. I think Dr. Ankita, I think very, very relevant topic. And we all know that the whole world around us has changed, right? So today we are all working within the definition of work from home, which is also, by the way, not only work from home, it is also work for home and also work out from home. So, right, so a lot of things are coming together when we say WFH has a new meaning altogether. Let's start with a very interesting fact. So, by the way, whether it was COVID or not COVID, by 2030, McKinsey report says that almost 14% of the people would be changing their careers because of digitization and technological developments happening. So the only thing that has happened here with COVID is pretty much the things have speeded up, right? So what has happened here, the sense of urgency in terms of upskilling has been kind of given a very serious speed here because of COVID coming in. And in any case, the future was looking at a completely different skill set altogether. So in this context, what is also happening in the current scenario is that businesses are looking at revisiting their models altogether. So for example, let's talk about the worst impacted industry in this in the current time. This is probably tourism. It's probably recreation industry. So what has also started happening is, like, I'll take an example. So companies like Thomas Cook, which was pretty much into holidaying, organizing holidays, is today looking at something completely different. So they are looking at doing virtual award functions for companies. So they've moved into a completely different model. If you look at the current, the way the business has got impacted. What does that mean? That means the entire skill set or the capability that you needed to run the business is now quite different, right? Running a tourism versus running a virtual awards show for a company is a completely different ballgame. You need a completely different skill set, and there is a lot of upskilling which needs to happen for the people who are actually now going to lead that. So a sales guy doesn't remain the same sales guy. The sales guy who was probably going to the in-store, doing the in-store sales, meeting the customers face to face, is now doing it in a virtual scenario. Engaging customers in a virtual scenario is a completely different ball game, right? It's a different strategy. A manufacturer of chemicals might be looking at now manufacturing a sanitizer, which probably was not his strength. And similarly, for the frontline person, to sell a sanitizer is a different skill set altogether versus selling a pesticide, right? So things will change based on the current context. Your business models will change. Accordingly, the skill sets will change. And I mean, we can go on, and I just can't say enough about Industrial 4.0, which is all about digital, right? So which is actually going to be the next big thing, which will change a lot of things, not only now, but in the next 4 to 5 years. And World Economic Forum reports and different studies that have happened will talk about that. So digital upskilling is going to be one big aspect. So in general, if you look at the whole piece, because of the change in the business models and because of the way things are going to change, upskilling will become very, very important for each and every organization. And specifically in our context currently, if I talk about that, it obviously started with the initial wave of shock that there has to be some sort of technological upskilling that has to happen. So a simple thing like a sales person who is working in a tier 3 city may not be familiar with a Microsoft Teams, or may not be familiar with a Zoom for that matter, or may not be familiar with a Google Meet. And I'm very sure a lot of us would not have been familiar with all the tools. Maybe we were comfortable with one of the tools, right? So that is also upskilling. So you had to learn those technological aspects to start with. Then again, the way you deal with the customers at the front end, like I said, the sales force, that has to deal in a remote environment. That is a complete upskilling that has to happen. So a lot of capability around how do I sell remotely? How do I engage customers? How do I do customer meetings? Or, how do I engage the big distributors? That is going to be second aspect, which will, come into play. So I think these aspects will make upskilling very, very important. And as we proceed, will be interesting to, talk more on this.
Sure. Thank you very much for that thought with the short, Mr. Atulaya. So moving on to Ms. Sonam. So let's understand from Ms. Sonam that in the earlier times, when employers are actually trying to the upskilling and reskilling, the acceptability of the upskilling and reskilling would have been different, and the acceptability during these times would have been completely different. So what has been her experience in terms of the acceptability of upskilling and reskilling from the employee's side?
Hi everybody. Thank you for having us over. I hope everybody's safe. Am I audible?
Yes.
Great. Right. So just as we know that how COVID has been reshaping education with a grand global experiment in remote learning, our businesses have also adapted by shifting operations online, right? So with no certainty or with no end in sight, it necessitates every professional to turn these circumstances into opportunities to upskill. Now, with regards to companies, we need to focus right now in the current times, and I'll get back to how it was earlier. We need to optimize learning solutions for all our employees. So I'd like to categorize learners as individual learners. Then there are learners who we club them with buddy jacks. And then there is an HR department vertical, which is focused only for learning and development and training, right? Now, out of all of these three, we need to distinguish between proactive upskilling or progressive change. I would like to focus on progressive change because, be it now or earlier times, there's always been like a gap in keeping ourselves relevant that can be filled only by proactive upskilling. So it's very important that we take it as a progressive change. I understand that it has impacted business, but I'd also like to say that productivity is not taken a hit. And hence, if there is productivity, it needs to be changed into a progressive change. Um, right now, because of COVID, it has opened so many doors in terms of accessibility, in terms of we expanding our professional network, we getting acquainted to diverse people, we also engaging ourselves in new courses. And I'm not just talking about upskilling, which is relevant to our job role. I'm talking about it is also giving us a new mindset that it could be a hobby that we get involved, because everything's getting very monotonous if we just keep sticking to what our job roles are. So hence, I would just like to keep reiterating that it's a progressive change that we need to look at, which will help us in our own proactive upskilling. We need to obviously keep ourselves abreast with the latest changes, and digital itself is at a fast pace that we need to keep ourselves updated with what the new trends are. So it needs to come from within, and I don't think that has really changed. The intent of an individual learner has not changed, be it the old times or the new times. There's some similarity there. We do have challenges, like we need to keep the content and our audiences engaged. We need to have relevant skill development. We also have limited resources. For example, in earlier times, it was easier to connect to industry experts, get them on board, get them to have cover one topic for one set of audiences. Those set of audiences would take it ahead, trickle it down or break it down for their teams. But now it's become even more easier and accessible for everybody to diverge into whatever information that they want to get into, be it skills or be it their hobby. So the skills in the industry are itself changing quickly. We need to look at what's happening globally. We need to have world class content. We need to, and in especially when we're talking about digital as a time, we need to engage our learner experience more. We need to have more strategic insights for them, and hence it's all connected to how we are also keeping them engaged, because it's very very important that be it the old times or the new times, HR is a function which needs to keep all their employees engaged. And how we now call it as a new normal, it does give a sense of normalcy for all the employees if we keep having these sessions regularly or continuously, as Dr. Singh mentioned. It will also ensure that the employees feel valued and heard, because in these times what most of the companies are focusing is business, 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 because of the impact. But that does not ignore the keep pace with what is changing, what is evolving, and what our employees would need and benefit out of it. So there was a time about external trainers, there was a time about industry experts getting involved, but right now times have changed in a way where a self learner is proactively understanding what is more relevant to his or her job role, and what kind of course does that person need to get involved in. And again, all of these engagement activities or training and development activities will surface what's happening around in the workforce and help us, make data driven decisions as well. So hence, I'd just like to highlight that how we can, um, have this all into a firefighting situation, and then responding to our employees, supporting them, recovering, and then getting a success out of it. So hence, I'd say that there's not a huge difference, but yes, everything now has become more accessible as compared to others. There's no dependency on a function to upskill or to think in that progressive mode.
Thank you very much, Sonam. I think that's a very interesting piece of observation that you have made, that be it the old time or be it the new time, the intent of the learner has not changed. I would like to come back to this observation a little later before I gather my feedbacks from
Sure.
Ms. Sanjana next.
Absolutely.
And yes, Ms. Sanjana, hi, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Skand. Hi.
Hi, Sanjana. So what is your input in terms of reskilling? I think Sonam has already emphasized on upskilling. I would like you to touch upon the reskilling of the part, because as Atulaya has also said, the business has to survive and people have to find the new roles in the same organization.
Right.
So I would like, based on that context, I would like you to touch upon the reskilling part from the employee side.
Right. So, yeah, definitely. So, when you look at your normal processes that are followed in the company, obviously, it's very different when it's remote working, right? So, Tonic being a digital agency, for example, let's take our new business development department, right? Who are in charge of getting new clients on board, new potential clients on board. Now, your usual practice is you go down to the client's office, you go ahead, you present the deck that you've made, and you have person-to-person interaction. Now, when it's virtual, things are a lot more different. You don't have your colleague sitting right next to you where you can just discuss and probably give a mutual answer. So, in that way, reskilling is something that's self-taught right now with everyone as to how differently you operate when you are working remotely. Another thing when it comes to reskilling is when you talk about your leaders, right? So, how you mentor your subordinates is very different when it comes to when you're working remotely. So when you have your constant feedbacks given to your subordinates when you're working in person, that is very different from how it is right now. So reskilling in terms of leadership skill is again something that should be emphasized on, because right now, more than ever, we need to kind of accept that we are vulnerable and that we need our subordinates now more than ever. We need to be more empathetic as well now more than ever. So while coming to reskilling, I think even leadership skills is something that really requires the reskilling aspect.
Thank you. So I think that is wonderful to know. So I would like to move to Mr. Atulaya now, and I would like you to I'm getting echo of my voice. I would like Mr. Atulaya to validate this point, whether the intent of learner has not changed or whether it has changed. Because in these unprecedented times, I have seen that many people would have been more acceptable to the digital learning. People would have been interested to go to a classroom session. Now they actually want to take up on their own a virtual classroom session. So what are your thoughts and what are your observations?
So I absolutely agree with Sonam. I think she mentioned about learners being more aware. I think that's where the companies are making a big shift, and it's a twofold shift, if I may put it that way. One is, of course, the skill sets that you require with the change in the business model, and starting with digital, and then cognitive skills become very important here. And this is coming from the organization. And I'll come to your the question that you asked specifically, but this is important: cognitive skills. So I need to be very much aware of how do I be resilient during these times. That's an important skill set, because a lot of it is happening around me. I need to be pretty much in control of self when I'm going through such a situation. I think that is definitely one of the skill sets. So cognitive becomes important. The second piece which becomes very important is the leadership skills, which I think Sanjana also touched upon. So leadership, because you're managing teams remotely, and you will not be able to do that. It's a completely different scenario. Let's appreciate the fact that leaders are not used to this kind of management. Maybe in an IT company or in a different setup, it happens, but not for most of the companies. Most of the companies don't operate that way, right? So how do I manage virtual teams, get the collaboration going, and so on? So these are the skills which come in purely because of the need of the hour or the change in the business model. But there is a second aspect which is so important, which we just talked about, is what we call the bring your own learning culture, BYOL. So how do I decide that what is it that I need to learn during this period? And this is a wonderful period. I always say that, with this opportunity may not come again. And I think the kind of upskilling or the kind of reskilling people are doing for their own development right now is a wonderful period. We are going to miss that. I can bet on that. And you see people taking up courses on becoming coaches, housewives doing dance courses, we doing virtual gymming, and so many things are happening right now. So, but coming to the point which you made, I think it's about giving the choice to the people to choose on what are those skill sets. And specifically, if we talk about my setup, we obviously have off the shelf courses, and I think that's the best way to go about it. So when you say off the shelf, you have a complete bouquet of say a Skillsoft or a Udemy or a Coursera or those kind of setups which you have, where you can go yourself and pick up a course which you like, which obviously has some business relevance, may or may not have in some cases. It's a pure choice of the employee, and you go there and you certify yourself and you do that. So that is pretty much the trend, which is a kind of is more prominent these days. I think this is a major shift in the thinking. This will go on forever. I think going forward from here, this will go on forever. And in any case, EdTech is a big industry. I keep hearing insane numbers on the way it is going to grow in the coming days. And this is the time where it has picked up really well. And with companies bringing that BYOL culture, it's really a big shot in the arm. I think that's really helping.
Correct. Well said. I think the tools were already there, but this impetus of this COVID-19 lockdown has actually forced all of us to take that digital learning journey. And I'm sure the organization, what they are trying to achieve, this culture will be sustained, I think, over a period of some time. In organization, I'm very positive that this digital learning culture should be and will be sustained. But individuals taking up the courses, that will also, time has to tell how it will go forward. So I think Sanjana brought a very a valid point of the leadership skills. And then you have also talked about the cognitive skills of the employees which are going to be there. And we have also seen during this time, many of the companies had also put a freeze on the hiring. And many of the companies would have rolled back the offers which they had given to the new joinees. So I want to, based on the news and the articles that we were hearing in terms of the new employees, I would like the panel to emphasize on the point that what kind of skills the companies are actually looking for from the point of a new joinee. And I would like the panel to address it from two dimensions. One will be a lateral hire, one will be a new hire or a fresh graduate. So Ms. Ankita, over to you. I would like to hear from you first.
Yeah, thank you. I think a very, very valid question once again. And what organizations are expecting, it completely depends on the nature of the business, what you are actually into. So as you very rightly said, and I think most of us have addressed how important upskilling and reskilling is, the format in most of the organization is, you get new projects or you enhance your productivity in the current projects. So these will be two parameters even going forward, which will define the upskilling path for the employees. Now, when you talk about individuals who get hired, earlier was the time when a common JD was released and recruiters, they just used to find people that we will get them in the system. We will, in a very relaxed manner, train them with the culture of the organization for 3 months and then probably 6 months of technical training. Now we don't have that much time. And with this work from home and with the requirement and with the deadlines, critical projects, obviously you want person productive and billable from day one. So things have drastically changed. Definitely organizations have moved from JD to more project specific hiring. And it's not only domain specific. Trust me, it is project specific. We know what kind of project it is. We want candidates to know who the client is, what kind of projects they have been doing, what's the skill set required, and how that person will fit in the system or in the project per se. So these are the two things that I would want to highlight. Internal will be for growth and for new prospects, and the new joinees will definitely be hired to fit. It will be more like a plug and play instead of hiring them, keeping them aside, and using it after probably uh, 10 months or so.
All right. Moving to Mr. Atulya, what are your thoughts on the infusion of the new skills or the infusion of new skills through the new hires?
Sure. So I think the way we need to look at this whole piece is what is it that is going to change with Industrial Revolution 4.0? What is not going to change? Because a lot of jobs going forward will become redundant, whether we like it or not. But the good news is there will be a lot of skills which will not become redundant. There will be certain skill sets which will always be there. So I just quickly read out to you, and then probably come to the point. So I'll just quickly read out some of the things which will always be there, pretty much required. So creativity, emotional intelligence, analytical thinking, critical thinking, growth mindset, judgment and decision making, interpersonal, leadership skills, digital skills, and embracing change. So so these are some of those areas which anybody or everybody, whether you are a new hire or a lateral hire, would be pretty much working on. And these are skills of the future, skills of now, skills of tomorrow, yesterday, whatever you may want to call it. And pretty much everybody who comes in the new hire scope of getting hired to work for a company has to really work on that. And we hear a lot about growth mindset. I think this will make a big difference. This is truly going to make a big difference, because it's about how much agile you are in terms of learning new things, because the world is really going to change at a geometric progression now. If in our days it was changing at AP, now it is at GP, right? So it's going to change big time coming forward. And whatever skill sets I just mentioned, I think these are the skills of the future. Whenever we engage with students, we always talk about that. I think if you're a lateral hire, you still need those skills. So they are not going anywhere.
I think the skills which you have actually spelled it out would be very interested, and I'm very sure the students out there who are listening to this would have definitely been ready with a pen and paper, and they would have definitely taken the notes. And
Sure.
Moving on to Ms. Sanjana and Ms. Sonam, one of you can answer on the infusion of the new joinees. What type of skills, or maybe one of you can answer from the point of view of a fresh hire, and one of you can answer from the point of view of lateral hire. What kind of skills you are looking in the new joinees? Ms. Sanjana, I would ask you to go first.
Sanjana,
Yes.
do you want to go ahead?
So, Dr. Singh mentioned that when you look at lateral hires, we are looking at them as a plug and play, right? So we would want them to come on board and immediately showcase their expertise, which was obviously evaluated during the interview process. And when it comes to new hires, we have hired new hires during this period, and it's all about, so what we look at is just the energy that they bring in, because like I said, Tonic Worldwide is a digital agency. So the learning doesn't stop, whether you're a new hire or you're a lateral. There are a lot of changes. For example, our business is mainly focused on social media platforms, and you know exactly how social media platforms keep changing their interface time and again. So the learning never stops. So when we look at new hires, we just look at the energy that they bring in and the passion that they have for the industry. And basis that, we go ahead and recruit them. Sonam, would you like to add to this?
Sure. Correct. As she mentioned that when it's a new hire, be it a fresher or someone who has spent some time in the industry, creativity, passion, and understanding the culture and being a culture fit is what the importance lays on. So that's very important. You can mold a person once the person's on board, but you can't mold the basics of anybody. So we, as she rightly mentioned, that we definitely emphasize on what is the person's passion, and plus what is the right attitude to join in. All of that matters. When it's about a lateral or a succession planning, it's more because because it's digital, you're not really confined to one particular role. It's always been a fluid role. I can speak this for Tonic because we give everybody that opportunity to get themselves either developed or they want to acquire a new skill in some other vertical. So nobody's confined or restricted to be in their own space or own role. So a lateral shift is an ongoing process. It's also the intent of the person wanting to join either a different department or want to learn or get involved, because digital is all about creativity, and creativity just doesn't stop at one particular role. Hence, yes, be it a lateral movement, a succession planning, or a new hire, everywhere upskills is definitely needed. But we look at how we can also mold and add to their skills.
Got it. Thank you very much, Sonam. So the next question from what we have discussed, I think the next question that emerges from the discussion, that the active job seekers or the students who are waiting for the interview to happen or who are waiting for a chance to join the organization, what are the few ways through which they can effectively upskill, reskill, or adapt or be flexible so that they are ready for the organization to be accepted by the organization in this plug and play model, what Ankita has talked about. So Ankita, why don't you go first and share your expectation with the students?
Sure. I think, yes, that's a worry because market is really slow and most of the organizations are talking about going it slow for, I don't know, for what number of months. So I would suggest an action plan, and that should be considered in 4 stages. First is prepare, which means, instead of waiting for the time when you are already hit by something and you start preparing yourself, you have already lost the battle by 50%. So just prepare for what you want to achieve, know about the organization, do a proper research where you want to join, what well they do and how you'll be able to contribute. Second would be proactive. Even now, when everybody is talking about slow market and very few opportunities, don't hear to them, find out other options. Thank God it's digital and you have a lot of platforms like LinkedIn, and I can, at least personally, I can see a lot of people reach out to us on Facebook as well. So only LinkedIn is not tagged as professional network. People who want to learn something, who want to join, they will find out all possible options. So just be proactive. Don't wait for things to get normal, because things will never get normal. Even this COVID effect is over. Probably hundreds of people will be waiting to just stand in a line to get it done. Then be predictive. As a lot of us are talking about upskilling, it's all about being predictive. You have to know what market is going to talk about. Like Atulaya said, creativity, cognitive thinking, communication. There are a lot of skill sets which would be required and they will prevail forever. But there are few which are actively looked at this point in time. So be predictive, know what will be required and where you'll be able to stand really strong. And last, I would say, be productive. When I say productive, a lot of times, as per our expertise or our capability or limitations, we get to choose, or we take up subjects which we find are easy, or probably which other people are also doing, because they say that there is a future ahead of it. But please understand yourself really well and pick up something which is relevant. No matter how good we are, but if you do not suit to the need of the industry, if it's not relevant, then it's a failure. No matter what level, even if you do a PhD and it's not required, similarly, even you won't be required. So for that matter, a very short example, if at all somebody to type really fast and you say, I can type 1,000 words using a typewriter in a minute, tell me who will hire that person. It's not about typing capability. It's about, we don't have typewriters in any of the organizations as in today. So relevance has to be focused on really well. So yeah, prepare, be proactive, be productive, and productive for sure.
I think again a very interesting note to start the this part of the discussion. So, Ms. Sonam, can you tell me the ways through which job seekers or students can be effectively able to reskill? So it can be tools, it can be methods, but how do they prepare? Building on what Ankita has said, how do they actually prepare to be productive, and how do they prepare to be proactive? What are your thoughts?
Right. So this would be in regards to a fresher or someone who spent a considerate amount of time in the industry.
So you can take
Both? We'll
you can
consider.
address it from the freshers point of view.
Okay, from a fresher's point of view, first thing is I think they need to be focused, as she mentioned, that it should be relevant to their interest, because we are talking about digital over here. It is not just a job. It is something where they're showing their creativity skills, where they are also going to help us with their thought process and ideas and their insights of understanding the industry. So the basic rule is to understand that what kind of role do they want to get into, and do they have any inclination towards that role to succeed and grow vertically in that role. I know it somewhere contradicts to my point that there's always been a fluid role and there's always been cross functional, but as they say that master of all and jack of none doesn't lead you anywhere, right? So you need to really be a jack of one at least, and you need to be focused at what you're going to master in other diverse things. So I think they need to focus on the basics of understanding the industry that they are getting into. Again, as she rightly said, that if there are no typewriters and if you are the best typist, it still doesn't help. You still wouldn't hire someone like that. So what is the value add that that person is going to bring on board? That value add will have certain skills. For example, if you want to get into the tech side of things, then obviously your education needs to be in that direction where you are a tech graduate, where you have acquired a skill, for example, coding. You want to get into the web development part of it. Now, that again has a lot of facets, like you get into the design part, which is UI, UX, you get into understanding wireframes, you get into understand. So either you understand whenever you join any course, you have your first year, which is your basic, which will give you an understanding what is the kind of specialization you want to get into in your second year. Exactly. That is kind of preparing yourself that I at least know what industry I want to get into. And in that industry, what sort of department or vertical do I want to master my skills at? So I think this is the basic preparation. As they say that if someone who's a fresher, it's the organization who needs to plan, needs to have an action plan of their training modules, how the week one, month one, 45 days or first year would look like. So there's a lot of preparation from our end as well, because I'm not saying that if I have identified my skills, it is going to match to my job role. It is the other person's responsibility, as in the organization's responsibility also to hone those skills and understand, okay, this person is relevant to this kind of job role or not. So it's a mixed effort from the organization's end as well, but the basic understanding needs to really be there, which is a part of preparation, as Dr. Singh mentioned.
Thank you. Ms. Sanjana.
Yeah.
Hi. So building on what Sonam has said, that the both organization has to be ready and the individual has to be ready. I'm sure the organization are actually making the best of the efforts that they can, given the experience that they are witnessing. But students or the fresh graduates who are on the other side and they are not getting to experience a lot of things that we are actually experiencing in the industry. So
Right.
how can they be preparing for the role, or how can they be the productive? What are your thoughts on?
I'm glad you got that point up, Skand. So because everyone will obviously, the advice that they give fresh graduates would be, this is the time that you need to go online, find courses and upskill yourself so that you make your portfolio better. But you're right, practical knowledge is obviously as important as the courses that you're going through online. So here I would advise fresh graduates to look for internship opportunities, because a lot of companies are offering them right now at this point of time. And you will at least get that practical knowledge from the 2 or 3 months that you work in that organization, and the learnings that you take from that experience will be nothing compared to sitting in front of your computer and watching a video for a couple of hours. So that is one thing. The second thing would be to reach out to industry experts. You have platforms like LinkedIn where you can reach out to industry experts and ask for, ask anything, because at this point of time, they will definitely be reciprocative. Even though industry leaders might be really busy, but they will definitely respond to fresh graduates who are aspiring to get into the industry. So yeah, that would be my second advice, to reach out to industry experts and kind of ask for their mentorship.
But I think Sonam and Sanjana put together have actually brought a very beautiful point, that students should be reaching out and doing the live project and doing the internship, reaching out to the people so that they are also aware what is happening, so that they know the role and they know the expectation, what is being expected from the industry or the leaders who are going to be working with them, so that they know the role, they are the proactive and they are productive from the day one that they join in, and organization are also happy to take them in the plug and play model. So so moving to the last part of the discussion, as we are seeing the platforms
sorry, can I add one point if you don't mind?
Definitely.
Sorry for barging in, but I felt this was
no. I was going to come to you, but yeah, please.
Slightly important. So I think apart from what everybody has mentioned here, I think I agree with most of it. Personal branding, I think this will make a big difference, because and I see a lot of institutes and students spending time on doing that. I think in our days we were not so lucky to have LinkedIn and all the social media platforms being so prominent. And today it's very easy. Today student connected with me who's just got into 𝗕𝗲𝘀. She's going to enter and she's just got connected. I mean, if I go back to my days, I never had those opportunities. I never had those opportunities to have those kind of connects. And what I immediately did was, she was able to engage and understand few things. So I think what needs to happen here is certainly, you need to look at your presence on social media, be there more on LinkedIn and Facebook and less on Instagram and Twitter. And spend more time on where it matters most. And I think one aspect which institutes need to look at is incubation centers, and that is going to make a big difference. So incubation center in this context would be something like from the institute and maybe a faculty along with the student forming up a team with an industry person and giving a solution to a company. So let's say I'm having a issue around performance management during COVID, or I need to design something on a different business model. So can these students come together along with the faculty and maybe one industry expert and give a solution? So because that is going to be a lot of learning. Independently, live projects will be, of course, is something which is happening, but incubation centers can really make a big difference in terms of upskilling your whole context.
I think very valid point. Compared to the other products, the student of a student of a college are actually talking products. So the personal branding point, I think something which I really appreciate, and I would like to students to take a note of this again while they are preparing to join such companies after having graduated. So moving on to the last part of the discussion, but before I start the last part, I would request students to type their Q&As, what they would like to ask our distinguished panelists. They can type in the chat box, and then I'll be able to take those questions to the panelists. Thank you. Moving on to actually seeing an advent of people who are putting out the courses that they have done from the edutech platforms. It can be Coursera, it can be LinkedIn, it can be Lynda, it can be Upgrad or Udemy. So there are many edtech platforms that they have come in, and people are actually continuously doing the courses from those edtech platforms. But are they really a viable alternative to the in-class learning or the classroom learning that we actually have by being in an institute? So, what are your thoughts, Atulaya? Why don't you start? And
Absolutely valid. So two words to describe that. I think now it's about learning from anywhere, right? It's not about classroom anymore. I work in Mumbai, and I'm on the Western Express Highway twice a day, which means 4 hours of my life I spend in on the Western Express Highway, and so is it for a lot of students. So that's the time people utilize to learn on their mobile phone. So it's all about customization and how easily the material or the stuff can be made available to people. So with this learning anywhere piece, I think that makes it extremely different from much more interactive, much more in demand versus classroom. Of course, it has its own advantages, but let me tell you one interesting piece, that a lot of trainers who believed that before COVID that they can't run their programs virtually are doing that today. So they are also challenging that, and people are appreciating it. And I gave a very simple example of we were running a program called Sales Pro. That's a very specific program for our frontline sales organization. And imagine a frontline sales getting trained in a classroom session, which we are now doing through a Zoom platform, where we use the breakout rooms and where we get them together. And instead of doing a full day program, you run a 4-hour program through that platform. And it's very interesting for people because they spend less time. Instead of whole day, they are more engaged. It's more collaborative learning. I think that's another piece which is becoming very important, where people come together and share experiences. So that is there. And of course, you always have that flavor of getting those interesting certificates, which you then go on the website and always share that, I'm certified in this particular area and so on. And the content is really interesting. It's really good. And it is pretty concise, if I may use that word, because most of the nice content or the good content there that you'll find would not be more than 15 minutes, or they'll be like quick shots or quick insights on certain topics. So that make it very interesting for people. So it is definitely there to stay, for sure. No change happening there.
all right. So I completely agree with you that learn from anywhere culture has become the new norm, and the collaboration is also being used in the learning platforms. But let's hear it from Sanjana as well, that whether all these edutech platform, whatever learning is actually happening and whatever the certifications are employees, whether it is still a viable alternative to the in-class learning that the had or the professionals would have had.
Right. So I would say the e-learning module has its own pros and cons. So for example, you're doing it's a self-paced module. So you're doing it at your own time. So, you can do it, you can plan your schedule accordingly. Whereas your classroom trainings, obviously you have a set date and time and you have to be there to attend, right? So here at Tonic, we've done, so we're planning on doing something really innovative, which is, if employee A has gone through various courses online, we want to translate that into that person taking a session to another group of employees at Tonic. So it kind of blends both in. You have an interactive session that's happening, plus the key takeaways that person received from the e-learning module. So that is something that we are planning on doing.
Thank you for sharing that. I think I wish you all the best on the success of the initiative that we're talking about. Let's hear it from Ms. Sonam. What are her thoughts on edtech platforms or the edtech courses being viable as a viable alternative to the in-class learning that we used to have earlier?
Right. I think I'd just like to add to Sanjana's point that, see, nowadays everybody believes in quick learning, and these courses are not your regular 2 years or 3 years of courses. You can get these courses done in 6 months and you can get your certification for the same. So, in a way, there are pros and cons. They are convenient, they're flexible, you can take it at your own pace, and you can definitely understand whether the relevance is there. But again, the content or the material that you're going through, is that very basic or is that actually customized for your needs? That direction, I think, is missing somewhere as compared to a classroom or the old school type of learning, where we call for industry experts, and if we are creating that target audience for that industry expert, it's very relevant. The content can be utilized, and as Sanjana mentioned, that even if one person is benefiting from it, that person tries to customize the content and puts it across to the other team members. So it makes a lot of difference as we are talking, but there are definitely its pros and cons. The other disadvantage is that, you know, you have to do a lot of research in understanding, are you going in the right path? You are responsible for those 6 months or that 10 hours or those 12 hours that you put in. Is that worth it? Is that not worth? So a lot of things depend on what kind of courses you're taking on. You mentioned a couple of them. HubSpot is one which totally is focused on digital advertising. HubSpot again doesn't give us. So there are two aspects here. Do you want to just take the basic part of it, or you want to get into the advanced learning? So there are a lot of things, but I think we need to first do our homework and understand this course is going to help me in future and upskill my current talent.
Can't agree more with you, Sanjana, because sorry, Sonam. Can't agree more with you, Sonam, because what you have said, that the content has to be the king, or the quality of the content which is going into the program will actually decide whether it is a viable alternative to the in-class learning or not. So completely agree with you. Moving on to Dr. Ankita. Ankita, I would like to ask you that we have heard from the our panelists that they feel that it is a viable alternative. The content is, or the quality of the content is similar to what we actually provide in the in-classroom learning. But do you think it will be a sustainable, or once we find a vaccine for the COVID, and once we actually move away gradually from the unlock phase to the regular course of work, do you think it will still be a viable alternative, or people will actually prefer to go back to the classroom learning that they used to have?
I think people have already tasted that. So who all liked the taste of that format, they'll stick to it. You would say, I want to do 50% of that and 50% of classroom learning. And few would say, no, I'm so much comfortable with classroom learning. So as we talk in HR, nothing is standardized, nothing is generalized now. Everything is very much personalized. And now we are dealing with generations in the organization. It's not that you just have Gen Z or Y, you have everybody, you have a mix. So if you ask me, Ankita, I'm just sharing a link with you of a book. Reviews are really good. Just read it, and somebody else will tell me that I'm sending you a hard copy. Trust me, I'll still prefer the hard copy. So it's not about you're not technically there, and you're not on internet. You're not taking care of things as required as on today. But there are few preferences, and those will not change if at all you have options available. The key or the win will be you have to find right mix for yourself, for your employees, for your students. And when we talk about classroom, the kind of personal interaction, the kind of engagement you can have, definitely that will be a great miss when we talk about virtual platforms. But at the same time, when I am free, like Atulaya mentioned, 4 hours he spends just in traveling. Just imagine if you want to give him a classroom training, probably it's next to impossible. He would say, I'll finish my work or I'll sit for your 3 hours training. But if at all you give him an app where there are videos, which we talk about as micro learning these days, if at all he has those 15 minutes video, which he can watch whenever he's free or whenever he's mentally ready to get trained, probably that will do wonders. So you just have to find the right mix, not only for the organization, not only for a particular project, but for each individual. You have to have the buffet system ready. Let the employee pick.
And would the organization's acceptability of those programs will be similar, or it will be a little different? So that is my final question.
I think it will be very much accepted as far as you are able to quantify it, because as Sonam mentioned, Sanjana, Atulaya, everybody said that content and relevance, these two things matter most. Because no matter, there are so many platforms, and because of COVID, there were so many courses available for free. I'm sure even if it was not relevant to us, a lot of people have just gone ahead and attended those courses because we didn't have anything else to do. But if at all, when COVID is off and you provide those certificates back in your organization, and you would say, you know what, I did these 10 courses and I want a better increment or a better profile, they'll say, just get lost. Because did I ask you, do you find any resemblance in the profile that is served to you? So you have to really think if at all it's relevant. And that's what we tell in organizations also. Probably internal training departments would not be able to organize all the trainings for the group. But if you think any particular training, which is even costlier, and you should be doing, and that will support the kind of work you are doing or the current profile that you are handling, everybody will always motivate you and encourage you to do that. So the rule remains same. If it's helping the organization, if it's helping the profile, organization would welcome that. If at all it has no relevance, they would say probably that's something you did for yourself. So congratulations.
Thank you very much for the wonderful note. I think that's very interesting. And I would like Atulya, Sonam, and Sanjana to add to that if they wish.
So as far as, sorry, please go ahead.
No, please go ahead. I'll add to your points.
So I think the question was around, will this be relevant and will it be acceptable to organizations? I think e-learning as a platform or e-learning as a concept has been around for some time now. So it's not something that, Coursera or Udemy were not there and they've suddenly come out during COVID times. It's not like that. I think most of the organizations today are looking at a blended learning module. So they have a concept of having e-learning and classroom. Similarly, in our setup, so because a large portion of workforce works on selling products.
Hello, Atulya, we have lost your voice.
By the way, getting challenged now in the current time. So like a very simple example of train the trainer. So can I do it through a digital platform? Difficult, but a lot of companies are trying that even today. We've done that very recently. But these kind of programs would probably require classroom interaction and will require some form of physical presence to do it. But as far as organization acceptability is concerned, I think most of the agile organizations, most of the companies who are more on the progressive learning organization, if I may use that word, have moved into an e-learning kind of platform where they expect people to actually get certified. So there is push from the leadership that you have to get certain certifications, you have to get certain trainings where you have to mandatorily go and learn. So it's not something which is becoming a choiceful thing. It's also a push-based system and also a pull-based system. So I think learning with those two elements together works well. I think it should not be only pull-based, it should also be push-based.
I think great to hear, because if learning is actually pushed to the individual, people might not be very acceptable to that thought. And if they are the one who are actually wanting that training, they would be definitely open and they would definitely do their best to get trained, certified, or get skilled, upskilled, or reskilled. Interesting. Sonam, would you like to add anything further?
No, I think Atulya covered everything. And I think I'd just like to add that, yes, this is a very successful model. We shouldn't depend on just one medium of learning or training. We should always have a blended one where we also get to learn what's new in the industry. And only that is the reason how we'll grow, right? If we just restrict ourselves to one medium of learning, it's never going to help anyone.
All right. Ms. Sanjana, would you like to add anything further?
I would just like to mention that so Sonam had brought this point up earlier that it's not just about learning something that's relevant to your job profile, but it's also about picking up a hobby that you've been wanting to for a really long time, and you haven't been able to because you're spending 8 hours at work. You're probably spending another 2 hours in just commuting. So, so this period has also, from what we've observed, it's uh, it's a catalyst for people who have had that hobby that they wanted to pick up, but they haven't been able to. So that's something that we've observed um, over this period as well. Whether it's like learning a new language or probably picking up a new instrument, something on those lines. Even that is something that adds value to their own bit. So yeah.
Right. So I think we have reached to the conclusion thanks to the insightful discussion which we had with the panelists. So thanks again, Ankita. Thanks again, Atulaya. Thanks again, Sonam and Sanjana. Because of the experience and because of the sheer wisdom that you have brought to the panel, we have had a very insightful discussion, and the students would be able to be ready when they graduate and when they actually go and join an organization. So I think the nuggets of wisdom are actually in the forms of stranded pearl. So as the moderator of the panel, I would like to put those pearls together and try to find out whether we actually make a beautiful necklace out of the pearls that we have collected so far. So we started the discussion with the understanding of whether the significance of the upskilling or reskilling has been increased. Yes, the panel was vocal that it has increased both from an organization and individual point of view, but the intent of the people or the intent of the learner has not changed. Those who had wanted to learn during the normal time, they still want to learn, and those who wouldn't have wanted to learn either ways, the intent is still the same. So that is one thing to note from the first beginning of the discussion. The second question that we have brought to the panel was, what kind of skills companies are actually looking for when they are going to hire a new, when they are going to induct a new joinee, both in terms of a lateral hire, both in terms of a fresh graduate. So Atulaya actually listed down the number of the skills. I would like to name some of them. People should have a growth mindset. People should have the emotional stability, emotional intelligence. They should, and Sanjana and Sonam also added that they actually hire for the energy, they hire for the passion that the individual has, the go-getter attitude basically. So if these skills and attitudes are in place, be it whatever time, be it the COVID phase or be it beyond COVID, organization will be happy to recruit those people who actually brought these skill, attitude to the table. And they should be very flexible in terms of, because in the VUCA world we always see that the expectation of organizations are evolving because the business model itself is actually changing over a very short period. So people who are flexible, people who have that who are adaptable in nature will be accepted and welcomed everywhere. So I think that is one good thing which we discussed during the discussion. And we talked about the internship and the live projects and the reaching out to the connects in the industries through which students can actually prepare themselves. They can know the role so that they are ready in the new scheme of things. So I have taken a note that the management training program, which used to run for 1 year or the 2 years, that might not be the new normal. The plug and play model will be in place for most of the organization. And students have to be ready, and the organization have also to be ready to implement that model. And whether it is going to be a viable alternative, whether it is going to fade away as a fad, that the time will definitely tell. But if the content is rich in quality, I think that is going to be remain there, be it done virtually or be it done in a classroom. If the teacher that we have had in the classroom, if the similar kind of collaborative, if the similar kind of cognitive experience we are getting in class in a virtual training environment, I think people will be also happy to take it up because of the personal choices or the personal preference that they have, and the organization would also be willing to continue with that model. So I think with that I conclude. If anything, if I missed to add, Alisha can add, respective panelists can add.
No, definitely, Skand. You have spoken and concluded all the points. We as students are definitely glad to know what the companies are looking for, how to upskill ourselves, and apply to the organizations, how to find relevant courses, content, definitely according to the expectation of the organizations as well as for the roles that we are looking for. So yes, I definitely agree that online training as well as offline training, we'll have both of them during our second year in college. So I think in future as well, that will go hand in hand. So we can start the Q&A round. There are multiple questions in the chat as well. And because this is streaming on YouTube live, so from there also we have copied a couple of questions to the chat. So if Skand, you can take them forward.
Sure. So I'll be asking first question, which Prashant is asking, is in the current scenario of upskilling, can upskilling or reskilling be standardized? If yes, how? And if not, how to benchmark a new skill? So this is a question open to the panel. Anyone can answer to Mr. Prashant's question. Sonam, would you like to attempt it? Yes, Sonam. I'll repeat the question.
Sure.
In the current scenario, can upskilling and reskilling be standardized? Because what I heard from Tonic, that you are actually working on a program where people will learn a program and then they will going to train some other people back. So I thought it would be relevant that if I ask this question to you, can upskilling or reskilling be standardized? If yes, how? And if not, how to benchmark a new skill?
I think it definitely cannot be standardized. See, upskilling is a process of learning new skills, right? And reskilling is a process of learning another set of skills. So if you're in an environment which is fluid, nothing can be standardized. You cannot knack a skill just by either working towards it for 10 years or 12 years or 15 years. There's always an updation, there are always newer trends that come in the industry. So there is something that cannot be standardized at all, I feel. There definitely will be a dynamic process of getting newer things and evolving of what learning is. So be it a lateral shift that we were talking about, a lateral shift can be connected to your reskilling. Say for example that you've spent about couple of years in one role and now you want to take the next level. That next level could be your new skill learning, but you already are aware of the basics. So hence nothing can be standardized. The new role could offer a lot more opportunities. It could open newer doors. It could also, help you understand that is that a better career change? Is that a better opportunity for me to get involved in? And once you get involved, you would find diverse people. Now, those people have not acquainted the same kind of skills, and hence it's called diverse hiring is the new hiring. So I think nothing can be standardized at this age in the digital era.
I think very well said. And the DNI initiative that the organizations are taking will actually bring very non-standardized practices and the non-standardized process of thoughts. And that would add to the business models of the organization in terms of providing new thinkings, new stream of insights from within. So Atulya, you have got an interesting question from Saraf. Saurabh is asking, if an industrial setup after this COVID scenario is set up using an incubation center, the supply chain would not be the same as earlier. So then the vendor development also might not be the necessary during that process. So the question is, from the perspective of startups that are associated as vendor partners to big companies, how can they be ready when the situation is actually changing?
So I think the point that I was trying to drive here was, and it's a good problem to have, by the way. So thanks for that question. I think it's a very good problem to have that, supply chain or the back end is going to change, even the front end is going to change. It's actually changing for most of the companies. And I did touch upon the business models and how the whole the bouquet of things that you are offering, everything is changing. And in fact, in the supply chain, you may have a scenario that you decide to relocate your supply chain completely, right? So that requires a completely different set of skill sets to be more agile, be more innovative, be more creative. How do I still get the job done? How do I move it out? So I think the point that we are trying to make when I say incubation centers, it is more from a learning standpoint for the student, because what happens here is, in any case, corporates do not expect you to come here and have experience equivalent to a 5-year in the company. I don't think any corporate has that expectation, whether COVID or no COVID. It's not going to change. We can't be unrealistic about it. But what will help here in terms of incubation is you get to learn real life skills. You get to solve real life problems. And how you do it through this incubation center is you actually work with experts. So obviously students would have a good grasp of the theoretical aspects which they learn. But when they team up with an industry expert or with the faculty, they actually solve a real life problem. And that's what you're going to do when you enter the corporate world as well. And just imagine yourself, coming with those skill sets. If you can be a part of some live projects or incubation centers, which will add a lot of value from day one. You don't really need those 90 days to, apart from obviously understanding the organization, you are pretty much there. You are learning a lot of skill sets. So in a supply chain format, if the vendor part is going to change or the sites are going to relocate, very good problem to have. I think a very good problem statement to address through an incubation center. Why not work with the organization, get your faculties together, help them? They would welcome it.
Interesting take to that question. I think we will have got an answer. Moving to the next question, Arjun is coming up with a very interesting question. With remote working culture increasing and the remote onboarding or the digital onboarding happening, how do companies plan to inculcate organization values among upcoming employees? So I would like Sonam to address this question.
Right. Okay. So very interesting question, actually. I think gone are the times. I think HR at some point were called as culture ministers, but not anymore. As I have been saying that when we hire people, we look at the right passion, the skill, talent. Of course, it goes without saying that talent is one part of or one aspect of it. But the right attitude and passion is all it needs to get into a creative field or at least digital industry. I think nowadays it's the leaders who are driving the culture. It's how we are coaching our leaders and how they are taking it ahead. So hence, I think remote culture, everything is a chain reaction. All we can do is we can arrange some activities, we can have events, but we should not lose the emotional culture part or understanding employees, their strengths, their challenges they want to put across. I think that basic thing not go away, even if it's remote or it's the regular phase of working. So that open door policy and all of it that you talk about comes from within when everybody, along with your leaders, your managers, your HR team, are accessible enough, and the employees feel the need to reach out to all of these departments. Obviously, there's always a stress on follow the hierarchy, but I'd just like to put across that in digital, there is definitely following a hierarchy, but open door policy is taken in the very literal sense. Everybody is accessible to understand that are there any challenges? Are we banking on their strengths? Are we keeping the emotional culture or the emotion of the employee? Are we making them feel valued? Because remote means that you're not meeting people or you're not seeing their faces, so there are no regular conversations. So we should focus on the point that at least we are not ignoring the facts that there are no one-on-one conversations. There are no coaching happening. There is a loss of touch. I think these basic things will still prevail the culture going on in the organization. Sanjana, you would like to add something?
Yeah, I think transparency plays a really important role here establishing organization values for the new hires, because without transparency they will not be able to see it at all. So yeah, that is something that has to be enabled in such situations.
Thanks, Sanjana. I think it is an interesting question. So I would like Dr. Ankita also to put her thoughts on this. With remote working culture, how companies plan to inculcate organization values among incoming employees? What are your thoughts and practices that which are being followed at CIGNEX?
So I would say whatever you want your employees to see, you have to breathe in that, every day. That has to be part of your all processes. So your communication, it should show your values, your processes, the way you let new people come in, but more importantly, the way you let your people go out. So as they say, definitely the entry should be glorious, but exit should also be very gracious. So you have to take care of all the aspects. When you start breathing values, when you start valuing each and everything that you have defined, and when you ensure that your value system is part of everything you do, it automatically becomes part of your, be it a virtual system, either you're working from home or when you are able to meet all the employees on daily basis.
Can I add my bit on this, please?
Yes, definitely, Atulaya.
All right. So I think this is something very close to my heart, because something we launched during COVID, and we came out with our new values almost about 6 months back when we did the huge acquisition and kind of redefined the purpose for the company and came out with values, which is like nothing is impossible, one team, one focus, always human, and so on. I think values work well or are best remembered when you tell them in a form of a story, because anybody in the world, if we launch something and ask them after 3 days, I don't think there's any HR leader or any business leader who would be able to give you a verbatim explanation of what it means. Nobody will be able to do that. I think the best form is through storytelling. So what we did here was, we utilized this period of COVID because a lot of values will get exhibited. These are the times where your values will really come. Your organizations will actually display those values or miserably fail in exhibiting those values. For example, one team, one focus was one of the values. So how do we use the stories or the success stories during this period? We have our spraying machines, which we provide to our farmers for spraying pesticides on the crops for food protection. But guess what? When we had COVID, those same spraying machines were utilized for sanitization purposes in Mumbai and different cities, and it was able to do that pretty quickly because of the kind of services you had. You had the Amphan cyclone in Bengal, where
Yes.
company went out of the way to support people because there was a lot of damage that happened. That displayed exhibiting the value of always human, which is one of our values, right? So bringing those stories together and bringing them to the organization at large and connecting them with the values as and when they happen through an email communication or through your town halls, I think that is what people remember. If 1 year down the line, if I ask this panel that what was the example of always human, I think a lot of us will remember that it was about helping people in during those cyclone days or about sanitization. But those verbatims people don't remember. So it's a pretty softer aspect, and I think this is the best time to utilize it because the values will get tested the most.
I think very well put. I think Arjun would have got his answer, and we would have also got our insight that how can we actually implement the organization values among the new joining whom we are digitally onboarding. So another question I have quickly from Ankit. Ankit is asking how the HR sector is planning to restructure compensation for certain functions like sales, which actually rely mainly upon variable components in the CTC. So what are your thoughts, Atulaya?
I think that's a pretty tough question that you've asked me, but I'll share my bit. I don't know how much of it. They should not kill me after answering this one, by the way. So I think there are two pieces to it. One, of course, I think sales is where the money comes from. So you can't be unrealistic about it. You can't have programs or 100% incentive based programs for sure. I think what needs to happen here is probably a lot of focus on two pieces. One, of course, is revenue, how much sales is happening, and second piece is on the collections, because sales is incomplete till you get the money back. It's not about you go there and stuff the thing and money doesn't come back, doesn't help, right? So these two elements from a comp standpoint will become very important, and purely from an incentive standpoint. And I think companies will focus a lot on high growth, and there would be different slabs to pay differently for different growths that you're bringing, because somebody growing at 100% obviously needs to be exponentially compensated for that, or somebody versus somebody who's doing it at a 15% or a 10%. I know, I mean, these numbers itself are quite difficult to achieve that I'm talking, but I think a lot of companies will move towards having at least 20 to 30% of the compensation moving towards sales incentive platforms. Again, it's going to be a very industry dependent piece. What I'm talking is purely about crop protection. I'm very sure industries who are badly impacted will move to a larger portion on incentive based programs rather than fixed pay programs. And these will be short-term measures, because end of the day, the cash is becoming important for the company during these times. We always say cash is king during these times, and companies will try to protect it as much as possible. But the important piece is it should not be an unrealistic program, because salespeople are the ones who will get the money for you.
I think very well said. It has to be a realistic program, and the cash flow is definitely important for the organization to conserve and protect. So, Sanjana, what are your thoughts, or any practice would you like to share? How is HR planning to restructure compensation for certain functions like sales?
Just a moment. It's 7:32 right now. So after this, we'll take just one more question, and we will wrap this up. That's all right with all.
Sure, Alisha. Okay. Okay. So when it comes to compensation restructure, so fortunately, there hasn't been a major business impact when it comes to us, because we are a digital agency and everything is on digital right now. It's booming, if not anything else. So when it comes to compensation structure, there's no restructuring per se. But when it comes to your sales targets, just like Atulaya mentioned, setting more realistic targets is something that has been done, because because it cannot demotivate the employee just by having an unrealistic target there. We have to take the current scenario into consideration and realign those targets. So yeah, that's about it.
All right. My take to Ankit would be that the best salesman would be the one who would be able to negotiate with the employer that make my 100% salary as a variable component. So if you are the best salesperson, negotiate with your employer that make my 100% of the CPC component as variable. I'll go out there, I'll get it. Having said that, again, that is a personal choice and depends on organization and the employee as well. So coming to the last question, which I will ask every panelist. We have discussed about fresh graduates are expected to deliver from day one, and it has to be a plug and play model. How should the academia be prepared in the short term? So this question is coming from Kiran, and I think this is a very interesting. Whatever discussion we'll have from this question, we would definitely pass on to the our professors and the academic council. They would like to take some inputs from this. So asking Atulaya to start.
So I think I would reiterate the point on incubation centers. I think I personally believe that is one area where a lot of organizations or a lot of institutes have started to invest, but still a long way to catch up there. And I think that is something that you can certainly look at in the short term, because that's important. I think second piece is, of course, when we do interact with a lot of students, I think 3 knows become very important. I think for them, for individuals here, that you should know yourself very well. I use this period to know your strengths very well, build upon those strengths very well. So if you're looking at certain companies which you want to target, and from the historical data that these are some of the companies. Look at how the industry is changing and what all companies could be the next companies to visit on campus, learn about them, know that part. Third piece is know your stuff, right? So we are talking about upskilling here, and we are talking about a lot of things which you need to pick up. Need to be focused, especially for faculty. If you're talking, I think more of industry interaction. I think what we are having today is something which they can look at on a regular basis. Maybe have some more webinars with certain industry experts on certain topics. I think that will be really helpful, insightful. And look at incubation centers. I keep repeating that. I think that's important.
I think that echoes it very well. Moving to Sonam, what are your thoughts? How the academia can be prepared in the short term, employees to be delivering from day one?
Okay, I do not agree with the statement that fresh graduates are expected to deliver from day one. Uh, when we use the word plug and play, it's applicable from, say, there's a reason why there's a probation period of 3 months, 6 months in any organization, right? When the word is used plug and play, it's also not applied from day one, even for experienced people who come on board. So fresh graduates are not expected to deliver from day one, but they are rather expected to get inculcated in the culture in the beginning. Like how Dr. Singh also mentioned, the values need to be imbibed, even adding or taking the cue from Atulaya, that they need to understand how the setup is, how we function, what is the roadmap, what is expected out of them, and plus what are their expectations from the organization. So it's a process that happens which doesn't put a lot of pressure on freshers or any new joinee who comes on board from day one. In fact, there's a complete induction program which is created to make all the new joinees comfortable. And having said that, the academia could only prepare everyone to understand that what they are getting into is of their interest. I'm just reiterating to the point that everything should be of relevance. They are not just doing a job over here. At least the next generation, we are not going to get stuck to a job for about 15 years or 20 years. We definitely have a roadmap in our own minds also, that how our career is going to flourish and how it's going to look like, say, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. There are so many individuals now who just want to get into a job just for the experience part of it and then open something of their own. So it's not really the right statement to say that we put that kind of pressure on fresh graduates or anybody joining to deliver from day one. It's how you prepare the academia, the atmosphere and the environment that they come from. How do they prepare? What are the skills that they have acquired, and how are they going to add value to whichever organization they are going in?
Well said, Sonam. I think that will actually calm the nerves of Kiran, who had asked this question. Moving on to Dr. Ankita. So we all agree that a plug and play model is emerging with respect to the new employees. It might be from day one, it might not be from day one. There are different set of thoughts, but students are definitely gearing up. What is your message to the academia or to the professors or to the academic council? How should they be prepared, and how should they be structuring changes in a way so that the students or the fresh graduates are ready to deliver in a shorter term than earlier?
I think experience is only felt when you're part of it, and you can deliver in the same manner if you are physically, practically there. So industry collaboration is a must. So connecting dots when we are talking about projects, when you're talking about organization culture, you have to know it by working with people, with the company, and knowing what culture they follow. So yes, industry collaboration, I would say, would be one. Second would be demand and supply model, which fits almost everywhere. So whichever industry that student is targeting or your college is targeting, they have to know, as others also said, you have to research it properly. What is that one thing or multiple things they are asking for, and you have to prepare your curriculum and students according to that. Attain more practical knowledge. A lot of us are still going for 3 months or 4 months of internship in the entire course. A lot of colleges have moved their second year full term for practical internship or project collaboration. So that should also be thought of, because that definitely helps more, knowledge while you're working on the project. And fourth point would be, I think, yes, like Sonam also mentioned, we have to ensure that students or freshers, they are almost ready and fit for the corporate world. So they need to understand the culture. They should be ready to change with changing times. They should be open towards learning new skills. Probably we think that we are fit for tomorrow, and tomorrow is a completely new day. So instead of getting demotivated, the college, the institute, the mentors should train mind in such a manner that you are practically ready to take up any challenge and change as per the requirement. Yeah.
Very well said, Dr. Ankita and the other panelists. I think this evening we had a very not only an insightful discussion, but thanks to the participation by the students as well, we have also noted down the action points to work on, both for individuals and for the academy as well. So I thank the august gathering of the evening once again, and sorry for being a lousy host and crossing the time by 11 minutes. So, and thank you all for bearing with me, and it was great interacting with you all. And thank you. Over to you, Alicia. Thanks everyone else.
Thank you, Skand. So I would like to thank our esteemed panel of guests for this very insightful and knowledgeable session for all of our students, our alums, and our faculty who have joined here. I would thank them individually. Thank you so much to Dr. Ankita Singh, Mr. Atulaya Goswami, Ms. Sonam Saraf, and Ms. Sanjana Ramesh, as well as Skand Gupta for moderating as well, and for taking time out from all of your busy schedule and sharing these valuable inputs and your vast experience with the students. Because in COVID, right now what we are doing is learning courses, maybe grasping multiple courses to see that we are upskilling, but maybe we are not being very direct or focused or relevant to the roles that we think would be or we would like to take in the future, and what the expectations of organizations, how they're changing, and how should we target those expectations rather than what was going on previously before COVID. So thank you all so much. There are multiple questions there right now as well. We have copied all the questions, so we'll probably mail you questions. If you would like to answer any of them, you can do that via mail as well. And Atulaya sir has also typed in all these skills that students can learn. Thank you so much, sir, because this is very relevant. And of course, I would also like to thank our YouTube viewers who are watching the live stream there, and the video would be available for some time, so you can go back again and hear all the discussions. Thank you, Ankita ma'am. And I would like to wrap up the conversation now. If any of the panelists wants to add any point that would actually help us learn to what we should actually target in the skills or technology that is changing, what you are looking for, and if anything relevant to this topic or theme, or any points that we have missed out on while asking the questions. So if anyone would like to add anything.
So I think Skand has been I don't know why he called himself lousy. I think he's really kept us on our feet during the entire discussion. And I think it's been really wonderful interacting with all the students and the panelists. So from my side, as you mentioned, I've already shared some of the skills of the future or skills of the present, which will be relevant. So I think that's where the focus needs to be. Can't think of anything beyond this. If I do, I will certainly would like to connect to a different platform and share that. But it's been a wonderful experience. Thanks so much for that.
All right, thank you so much. And I guess it's we would hope for more interaction, industry experience, and collaborations with you all. as well as for our students to learn and acknowledge these points and then go ahead from there. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
Alicia.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Alicia.
Thank you, Alicia, for organizing this
Thank you,
and
Skand.
taking us.
Bye,
Thanks,
Sanjana,
everyone.
Sonam, and Julia.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Sonam. Bye, Ankita. Bye, Atulaya. Bye, everyone.